Geelong had a gear that Melbourne couldn't match late, and a complete lack of polish from the Dees is set to frustrate their fans as they go 0-4 to start the season. Let's talk about Friday night at GMHBA. As we like to do, let's talk about the winners. The Cats have never taken more uncontested marks in a game since stats have been recorded than they did tonight, which is extraordinary, or yesterday. By the time you're watching this, I'm sure this won't go up until after midnight. But it was extraordinary with a mark differential of over 80. That is a show of territory dominance that is rarely seen anywhere else. GMHBA, of course, is a big advantage for the Cats. It's not one that I'm particularly mad at. I barrack for Hawthorn, we play in Tassie, so maybe shut up about these things, I think. But overall, they played the ground awesome, and I actually don't think that Melbourne played the ground badly. They just played badly with ball in hand. But we'll talk about them as we get later in the video, guys. My gosh, wait, have some patience. My goodness me. But the Cats' back half were extraordinary, and effectively their entire 9-man defense, 8 once Jack Henry went down, were awesome and deserve a big tick for that. I could have effectively put every defender that they played on the night on the stats sort of list here, but I've only got a finite amount of time and graphics that I can do before I put this video up. So let's shout out Zach Guthrie here. Let's shout out the super clean and rising star nomination for the round. No one else even has to try. Good luck to you. Connor O'Sullivan, who was fantastic. One of the better games that I have seen from Brian Myers, who, although of course not a defender, had 70% of his heat map inside the defensive half for the Cats amongst his 26 disposals. That high half forward role, which if someone properly broke down the way that they're changing the way that the game is played, I think that would be rather interesting to watch, to be perfectly honest with you. And Ollie Dempsey on the wing, who was actually used, unlike a particular Melbourne wingman, was awesome. And Ollie looks so natural in the air, it genuinely feels like he's being photoshopped, which is not an original thought of mine. I did see it on Twitter. Apologies that I didn't screenshot it to credit the person who wrote it. I loved it. I completely agree with you. And if I do find it before the video is uploaded, it will be here. If not, I will make sure I put it in the description so you can get your credit, because I'm not stealing shit. Why would I do that? But the best player on the ground, and of course the best Geelong player, was Danger, who I swear to you, if he was 10% a better kick, he would fit comfortably in the conversation of best players of this generation. But you've got Dusty there, who of course is field kicking exemplary. I prefer Fife, personal subject there. It's just my opinion. It's not right. It's not wrong. It's just how I feel about it. And there are other guys around that mark, and I feel like Danger's kicking is the biggest and best reason that someone might pick someone else. If he just had a bit more damage by foot, geez, we would be looking at genuinely one of the greatest players we've seen, let alone being in that conversation. His career is still exemplary, he's still a superstar, I'm not denying that for a moment. But the set shot on half-time, did it make a difference? Not really, but some of his set shot goal kicking looks like the purest kick you've ever seen. And some of it looks like dog water. You don't really know which one you're going to get from Danger, which kind of sucks, to be honest, because, like I said, ever more dangerous. Melbourne wish they had that player. And you might say, Daz, did you watch Christian Petrarca? And I would say, yeah. But Geelong still looked damaging in the midfield when he wasn't there. Melbourne didn't, and that is a key difference. Tyson Stengel and Shannon Neal both got involved late, which is great. Sean Mannon did as well, which was awesome after quiet outings for different reasons. Got on top, and overall, Geelong went into their home ground, covered the line, which was 29.5, which for a home game at GMHBA is kind of the benchmark that Geelong have set themselves over the years, which is extraordinary. So a massive tick for them, and Tom Stewart and Lawson Humphreys are the other two that I wanted to shout out quickly before I moved on to the Dees. A job well done by the Cats, and I've forgotten someone else, and it's Reece Stanley, who I thought was very good in this game as well. The late in for Mark Blitzarves, and I thought the AFL was going to crack down on that. Evidently, they have not. They have got some things to crack down on the AFL, so fingers crossed they can get them done as quickly as possible. Let's talk about the Dees. I don't really want to tell other people how to do their job, but whoever does the video editing for Melbourne's review this week, the only footage you need to show is a complete 8-minute package I reckon you could get out of Ed Langdon being absolutely burned going inside 50, and it was Bailey Fritsch and Cozzy Pickett that kept burning him. I think Jack Henderson did a couple of times as well, but I'm way more forgiving of him than I am the other two. Henderson, Harvey Langford, Caleb Windsor, these younger guys are the guys you are going to give a leash to. The problem is, is that most of their senior guys are also not stepping up, which is a massive problem. And whilst their forward line only kicking 46 points, the same as Carlton on the weekend, the other thing that Melbourne and Carlton have got in common, and the big takeaway from this game, is that both midfields have got a 66% problem. What do I mean by that? Well, at every centre bounce, you have got, of course, your ruckman plus your 3 midfielders, right? And if you have 66% of your midfield of largely contested players who aren't damaging by foot or with foot speed, you are screwed. Carlton have Cripps and Hewitt, and they do not have breakaway speed from the stoppage. Walsh and Chera are not that guy. Melbourne have Oliver and Viney when Petrarca's not there. So, what's the answer? They looked damaging with Cozzy Pickett in there, but is it a Bowie that needs to get more runs in there? Is it Caleb Windsor who deserves more goes in there? And Harvey Langford himself doesn't look exceptionally quick out of stoppage either. I think the answer to this is Jack Viney might need to be doing for Melbourne what Stephen Coniglio is doing for the Giants, or what Travis Boak is doing for Port. And that is not as much CBAs, a calm head around the footy who is still able to move the ball. He may not be able to deliver the ball 45, 50 metres to someone's chest on a massive lead, but Boak and Coniglio are still contributing to winning football. That might be the way to go for Viney, because Oliver just simply can't. He is a one-trick pony in that midfield, which is fine if he's got other guys around him, but there is a lack of explosion out of stoppage for Melbourne that is just not delivering the goods at all. Like, the clearance numbers were basically even. Yet, their ability, Melbourne's ability to generate scores from clearance looked impossible. I'm talking Daz hitting on Heidi Klum levels of impossible, right? Not that I would do that, in case any of you rat to my missus. No, I do not want to hit on Heidi Klum. But look at her, look at me. I think you know what analogy I'm aiming for here without me saying it out loud. But again, speaking of ugly, that's the way that this fucking Melbourne team look, with ball in hand and open space. The amount of times that their forwards wanted to get out the back of the Geelong defenders, which again at GMHBA makes sense with your ability to take territory, but kicks kept falling short. And I would argue for the first 10 or 15 minutes of this game, their ability to hit up at the ball carrier was actually awesome, until the kicks didn't hit perfectly and they abandoned ship. And I think Jacob Van Rooyen now just has to be a lead-up forward. He's not a number one guy. I don't think he's going to be your guy out of the goal square who is a wrestler. He will need to get that aerobic ability up. I don't know if Matty Jefferson is going to be a number one either. Are they stuck with 2 number 2 tall forwards? Maybe. Where are you going to get another one from? I don't know. Is it offering Oscar Allen a shitload of money? I have no idea, but Allen wants to contribute to a premiership. Considering there are other clubs that are going to be in that hunt, is he going to want to go to Melbourne? I don't think so, personally. So they're in a bit of a pickle there. And all of that could be excused if they had a forward line of smalls that were able to contribute as well. But it was an ugly night for the aforementioned Fritsch, Pickett, these kind of guys. And they weren't playing Cade Chandler as a half-forward style player. Chandler was still one of their best players on the night, and in that kind of Brian Myers getting down the ground kind of role, you'd actually be forgiven for thinking he played back pocket for the majority of the night. He did, but it wasn't for the majority of the night. And then you got Tom Sparrow, who again is a high half forward, but he tagged Max Holmes and did a magnificent job of it, by the way. But at this point in time, ball movement and forward line dominance are 2 things that Melbourne are just not getting at the moment, and it's why they're not scoring, which is a problem that'll need to be fixed ASAP. Is that a Simon Goodwin thing? I'm not too sure. But positive, they are going to be able to replenish this in future drafts. I can absolutely see the Dees, if they don't miss out on Kalani White, for example, trying to move their 26 first, second, or 27 first, second round picks into this draft somewhere, somehow, to keep loading up on talent. It would not surprise me at all if a team that is in a relatively good position right now might move back and collect some assets 2 or 3 years down the line. Hello, Collingwood, if you're listening, depending on what they'd have to give up for Tommy McGuan. We are getting ahead of ourselves here. Moving forward, Geelong did everything they had to do. Melbourne, their exposures against North were still exposed here. The more frustrating part of it is that it took North 6 minutes in that final quarter to take it away. Geelong did the same thing, albeit not to the same margin, but Melbourne just didn't capitalise on their momentum at all. And if you can't do that, you're not winning many games in 2025. So that's what I think, guys. Like the video if you like the video. Subscribe to join the Dees Talks Footy cohort. Comment, interact, tell me what I got right, tell me what I got wrong, what you agree with, what you disagree with, all of those fun things. I'll be back for the Saturday session. Thank you so much for watching. Enjoy the rest of your weekend. See you tomorrow.